What's up, guys? So I am just in COD Vanguard real quick. This is gonna be a fairly, hopefully quick video. I don't actually want to be in this too long because I have to go do something important. Um, but yeah, today's video is just a bit different. Now first of all, I'm just gonna start by saying I'm not gonna speculate. The point of this video is not to speculate. I'm not trying to pretend like I know what's going on or that I know how AMD's new stuff's going to perform, whatever. But obviously, my channel's theme is catered to this kind of thing, so I guess I have to speak about it, right? So regarding Zen, first off, I'm just going to say that this does exist. So if you check, and yeah. You know what I searched because honestly it's what happened. So while we're searching for a game, I'll just go over this article. So if you come over here, you'll notice that this Discord was leaked. Now, obviously this could be fake, but I feel like COD Hardware would have done their due diligence, and I just feel like this wouldn't have been allowed through and allowed to be published if it wasn't somewhat true. And apparently Robert Matlock is speaking to someone. This individual asked him about FCLK on Zen, and what do you guys see? Right. So
Little fucker.
essentially what we're seeing is, wait, let me just mute for you guys, sorry about that. This person's being loud. Let me just mute this real quick. Let me just... okay, cool. So, as you can see, he quite blatantly, not blatantly because that sounds like it's necessarily bad. I mean, it's neither here nor there, it's whatever you think, but he quite clearly states that Zen will not have 3000 FCLK. Now, I've seen a lot of publications actually mess this up and think that there's 3000 FCLK. There is absolutely not 3000 FCLK on Zen 4. Isn't 3000. Some people thought it was more than 3000 even. There's not more than 3000, it's not even 3000 itself. It'll be like around 2000 if you have a good bin, a good sample, but in most cases it'll probably be around like maybe 1800 to 1900, depending on the CPU sample you get. Obviously that's binning dependent, so it means it depends how stringent they are what they're binning for Zen 4, and that'll kind of determine how many CPUs come through with like lower end FCLK values. On Zen 3, obviously some chips couldn't do really more than like 37, 33 RAM for 1-to-1-to-1, so about 1866, right? FCLK, around there. So that was a very realistic max on a lot of CPUs on Zen 3 side. So for Zen 4, I would say a safe bet would be either the same or slightly worse. And I'm not sure why it would be worse, but the fact that he said 1733 is default makes me think that Zen 4 could actually have like worse quality FCLK than Zen 4. Sorry, could have worse than Zen 3. It's possible that he means default. Like, I mean, I don't even know what that would equate to. Like, why would he say 1733 is default? Like, would that imply that it tries to link itself or unlink itself at baseline? Because I mean, if you check the current spec sheets online, 5200 DDR5 is standard. So does that mean that they want you to run unlinked with the fabric anyway, and like that's the default? I mean, it could be that, guys. That's possibly what it means. If you come check here, we can look at Zen 4 specs and come to the Tom Hardware article. Even here, this is fine. We can look at. Does it show you? It should show just here somewhere. Sorry guys, I'm just checking for this. Where would it be now? Okay. I can't find it right away, but basically Zen 4's default RAM speed is 5200, so 5200 DDR5 is what they kind of like spec out as a bare minimum, so you should definitely be able to hit that. And as you saw from the article, it seems like what he's saying is AMD are now no longer focusing on that whole one-to-one-to-one thing they used to kind of like preach, and I find that kind of strange. Don't you guys find that kind of strange? It's kind of strange how, like, you know, at one point many years ago, the narrative of oh yeah, Intel is beating us in terms of you know, in terms of like pure RAM speed, like 9th gen, 10th gen, when Intel were doing above 4000, obviously one-to-one linked, because Intel had no unlinked mode back then. It's funny how back then, in that case for Intel, AMD would argue, oh yeah, but you know, you don't need to run RAM that fast. You know, our RAM is optimal at this speed because of our fabric and blah blah blah. And people were like, ooh. But it's funny now how when DDR5 comes around, all of a sudden one-to-one-to-one is no longer relevant. And you know what, guys? I'm not the one that's like, I'm not the one that even brought this to the fore. A good friend of mine named Chris, who isn't a ex-OCer or OCer, he's just a enthusiast who likes gaming. He, you know, he's the average customer. He's someone that doesn't mind AMD or Nvidia. He's not really he's not really about all that like max mem type stuff. I mean, he's a very normal customer, and you know, when I spoke to him about this, he was like, "That's weird, Dane, because back when AMD was like you know, marketing Zen 3 and stuff, they used to speak about how important it was to keep the fabric in one-to-one-to-one mode." And I was like, you know what? You're bloody right. From Zen 1 all the way through Zen 3, so from Ryzen 1000 series, 2000 series, 3000 series, 5000 series, they would always kind of like, you know, insist that one-to-one-to-one is important, and, you know, the fabric can't do anything more than X, and, you know, you shouldn't worry too much about RAM speed, and blah blah blah. And it's funny now how, with Zen 5, or Zen 4, sorry, rather, that whole narrative has changed. And it's kind of changed to fit their new narrative, which is that apparently fabric is no longer important for latency. It's more important to keep the memory controller one-to-one. And you know what? To a degree, they're not wrong. Like, I do agree with that. Like, you know, E-statement, when they say that it's important to keep the IMC one-to-one with the RAM, that's true. It's probably more important. Because, I mean, you can argue, in a way, you can argue that Intel's version of fabric isn't one-to-one. Well, the thing is, Intel's ring, if you have the equals disabled, can run it like up to 5 gigahertz, and 5 gigahertz ring, right? That's equivalent to like 10. That would, in theory, match 10,000 mega transfers DDR5, which is obviously not even, we're not close to that, right? So the argument that they're making, I bring up Notepad. The argument AMD are now making is that one-to-one UCLK, which is memory controller, to mem clock is more important than one-to-one-to-one. But Intel's fabric runs up to 5 gigahertz. Wait, what am I doing? And, you know, if you're talking about stock, the stock ring with equals enabled is 3.6, but that's still significantly faster than Zen's FCLK. So, standard Intel fabric So, I am not a fan of this argument that Robert Matlock made in that Discord thing, and I think he really regretted making those statements he made about Zen being at 6,000 sweet spot and then saying the FCLK matches and whatever. I think he fumbled his words, but whatever. Anyway, so as Frame just mentioned in his own video that he made, the truth is, yes, AMD Zen 4 will be pretty slow in terms of latency. It's going to be as slow as Ryzen 5000 was. It's going to have horrible IDA scores. It's going to have horrible access latency. It's going to have frame dips. It's just not going to be as fluid of an experience as Intel. But there's another aspect of this argument that I kind of feel like needs to be touched upon, and that's that I don't like how a lot of individuals I'm speaking to, or I've spoken to, or just like, you know, bumped into in this topic, are like kind of like feeding this narrative that apparently AMD is going to destroy Intel this generation, and that Zen is some insane architecture and all this crap, and like all these YouTubers doing the exact same thing, and that's so strange to me because, dude, you guys realize that Zen 4 with that slow as FCLK, right? Slow as FCLK, it's essentially what they're saying with the sweet spot thing is they're saying you will not be able to get more than like let's say 3000 megas out of IMC, right? Now, obviously, Intel is unlinked, so I mean, Intel is even worse than that to pop, and they're Gear 2, which means the IMC is 1 to 2 mode, but their ring is way faster than the FCLK, and to be honest, the IMC commanding the memory 1 to 1 is not as important as a fast interconnect speed. That's, like, it just isn't as important. We know this because 1T to 2T is not that big of a difference, right? And what does 1T versus 2T mean? 1T means that the memory controller commands the memory sticks every single clock cycle. 2T means it'll do it every other clock cycle. It'll send a command, right? And the IMC, okay, well, I guess you could say, according to its own clock speed, the IMC will send a command on every single clock cycle point if it's 1T mode, but no, 2T mode it'll do it every second one. So let's say the IMC is clocked at like, okay, with AMD, like let's say 3000 megahertz for DDR5, their sweet spot, so to speak. If it's 1T, it'll be sending a command every time, like on every single clock of those 3000 cycles. Whereas 2T will be doing every second time. So like let's say 1500 mega commands, because it's not going to be command. It's going to be like 1500 mega would be what, a million, like, so 1500 million commands a second. And if it was 1T, it would be 3000 million commands per second. So basically what we're seeing is this is not local lobby. So basically what we're seeing is AMD are kinda, I don't want to say, you know what, like, call it a spade. They're lying. Like, they're straight up lying. Like, they're lying. In my opinion, right? I don't want to get sued, but in my opinion, they're lying because you can see how Robert Matlock kind of reacts to that question. Now he's like backtracking and he's like, oh shit. The thing is, the FCLK being fast matters way more than the IMC being fast. The IMC really does not need to command the memory that often. And we know this because Intel side, like most Intel 7000 plus configurations. So most Intel 7000 plus configurations are in 2T and Gear 2. Therefore, not only is the IMC clocked at 1750 megahertz versus 3500 megahertz, it doesn't even issue 1750 million data commands per second. It does half in 2T. But does that affect performance? No, it doesn't. It doesn't affect performance. Why? Because there is a point of diminishing returns. Okay, it is obviously ideal. Obviously, it is ideal. It's always been ideal to have the IMC commanding the RAM on every single clock cycle point in tandem with the memory's command, or the memory's own clock period, right? But the thing is, there, from what we have seen, observed, is a point of diminishing returns where you can kind of fudge it and you can get away with a slightly diminished amount of operations being rendered by the IMC. The IMC does not have to command the memory in tandem in order to have decent performance, right? If that wasn't true, if this wasn't true, But the truth is, even in the last 6 years, like let's even say like a Comet Lake 4400 B die setup, right? How many of those do you see in 1T? Fucking none. Why? It's hard. It's fucking hard to do, right? The Comet Lake IMC running at 2200 megahertz to command 4400 mega transfers per second of DDR4 data rate. A 2200 megahertz IMC issuing 2200 million commands a second is fucking hard to do. It's damn hard to do. It's bloody hard to do. And that's why we all ran in 2T mode. If you're running fast DDR4 on Comet Lake, you know 1T was like not an option because it's just too fucking hard to do, right? Most IMCs couldn't do that. It's something you have to push a lot of SA voltage into the CPU for. You need adequate cooling on the IMC because obviously the cooling will matter. Like the temperature of the IMC will actually determine how stable it can do, say like fast operations. But yeah, so we were doing what, like, so for 4400, which is already fucking fast, 2200 megahertz IMC. It's a 1100 million commands a second, and that was doing just fine for latency. Just fine. 2T has been doing just fine. And it's because you have to look at it relatively speaking, guys. Like, relatively speaking, DDR5 at like 7000, even in 1 to 2 mode, your IMC, like I am running 7000 right now, like you can even check, like let's go to CPU-Z, right, if you want. Obviously you guys aren't stupid, so you should know this shit already. I've taught you guys well enough so that you all understand what I'm talking about, but wait, why is this not working? And tab out, surely. I think that's because of Steam. What the fuck's going on there? Man. Go away, Steam. There we go. Okay, cool. Check it. So, right now IMC's clocked 1750. 1750 megahertz would be 3500 DDR, like a 3500 megahertz RAM config. So, if it was 1-to-1, so that would be like 3500 mega transfers DDR4. So like you know, or whatever. Like you could even say, let's pretend like I'm at 1800 because it's realistically it's like no difference. It could be like a 3600 RAM config, like, you know, like 36C14 or whatever. So even in 2T, right? Back when we were doing 3600. So back when you were doing because I know most of you probably have run this config before. So back when you were doing 3600, were you concerned with 1T? Did it ail you? I bet not. I bet not, right? I doubt that any of you guys sitting at home watching this video with your DDR4 3600 mega transfer setups, like on either Zen or Intel, whatever, I doubt whenever you ran that, you were like, oh my god, dude, I'm only at 1800 megahertz IMC. My IMC is only commanding the RAM 1800 million times a second. I really have to be in 1T because if God forbid, God forbid, my IMC only does it 900 million times a second. Like, you know, I absolutely need 1800 million commands a second. No, none of you, no one sitting here watching this video. Please, like no one sitting at home has ever had issues with their IMC clocked around this kind of area, like 1800, even 1600, because I mean 1600 is what 3200 mega transfers would require, right? So you've never had your IMC, you know, giving issues at this kind of clock speed. Plus, you've never had it needing to do 1T because 2T was fine, right? So why? Because there is a point of diminishing returns, and it's something that AMD are currently not being truthful about. Because, yeah, AMD, stop fucking capping, okay? 1-to-1 is not more important than FCLK. Please, do not cap. Please, I beg, stop lying, okay? It's never been. Okay, no one requires a 3000 megahertz IMC. It's nice to have, for fucking sure, but it's not required. It's absolutely not required. You can definitely extract some performance out of it, sure, but it's not something you need, because, like, what kind of workload are you doing that requires your IMC to send 3000 million commands a second? Like, what kind of operation are you doing that requires that to maintain optimal performance? Like, how do you know your IMC doesn't? How do you know it needs to access data that often? Like, how do you know? Like, more than likely not. Why? Because there's a point to diminishing returns. We know it doesn't help that much because even 1T DDR5 right now, like let's say I was doing 7001T, it doesn't increase performance by like 10-20%. It might increase performance by like 3-4-5%, right? So what does that tell you? It tells you that taking my IMC from commanding data, 1750 divided by 2, which is, I don't know what, let's say probably like 875, right? Yeah, 875. So 875 million times per second, right? 875 million times per second does not create like that slow of a environment compared to doing it 1750 million times per second, right? So why? Because clearly the IMC does not have to be clocked that high to get performance, right? So we've established FCLK is more important, and it's damn slow. It's damn slow. Okay, you admit it's damn slow. Like 1730 degrees is fucking slow, right? And the IMC is irrelevant. It's irrelevant. It's clocked. What's the word? It's arbitrarily fast. There we go. The IMC is clocked arbitrarily high. It's arbitrarily quick. It's like, okay, cool. It's quick as fuck, but it's like, does it really matter? Not really, right? It would matter a lot more if it was 1-to-1-to-1. So if the fabric was that fast, yeah, that would matter. That would be a big thing. But unfortunately, the fabric is unlinked, so it means that all those beautiful latency improvements they talked about back in Zen 2, Zen 3 days, out the window. Apparently, it no longer matters, right? And then the coup de grace is that they fucking tested the i9, right? The i9 with the P cores and the E cores enabled at the same time. So the ring was down 3.6, right? The i9 does not clock itself to max at base because it's an Intel CPU. Intel CPUs have never maximized themselves at base unless you enable something like Intel Adaptive Boost, which itself is something that isn't even available on all motherboards, and they definitely did not use it. So it means whatever you were seeing in those benchmarks, 4.9 GHz, 3.6 ring, terrible. I use equals as you can see, but I'm not just a gamer. I do other things. I download games in the background. I do YouTube videos. So I like to have the equals on, but that doesn't mean this is faster for gaming. This is probably a bit slow, right? So AMD allowed the Intel CPU to be hamstrung, right? Hamstrung. They didn't use a KS, meaning that they could have faced a 5.2 all-core i9. They didn't. They didn't want to. Right, they didn't want to. The i9 1200KS does 5.2 all-core out the box. They did not want to face a 5.2 all-core CPU. What does that tell you? It tells you that they were worried that perhaps if they were facing a 5.2 all-core CPU, the numbers would look a little bit different. Probably losing a few more games than they were losing already, because they lost like 2 games. Probably losing more like 5 by that point, and then we have to consider the final tier on top, and this one is the one that bugs me the absolute most. Yeah, I'm not finding a game. Let me try and find a game, because I don't want to bore you guys with just my voice. So I know gameplay is nice to look at. But the cherry on top, 6 hours empty sec. So guys, a 12900K with the ring cracked, setting a cracked fucking ratio, right? And
so good, my bro.
And then you have the memory at like 7,000, guys. That is going to absolutely smash whatever the numbers were they put up in those videos or those slides, those marketing slides, right? Whatever you see on those marketing slides, guys, I can't describe to you how much faster 5.1/4.9 with like 7,000, tightly tuned memory would be. right? And you could argue, yes, you could tighten the AMD memory too. Obviously, the XMP is quite slow, so you could, tighten up to like 6000 C28 with like tighten tertiaries and secondaries. Of course, like I'm not saying you can't tighten up the AMD memory in that slides as well. Yeah, of course you can tighten this a little bit. You can, like I said, you can drop the CAS by like 2 ticks. You can drop the TRCs and TRT by a couple ticks maybe, depending on what ICs we use in the testing. If you use Samsung ICs, you could do 35 TRCD and TRP pretty easily at 6000. If you have some skills, you could do like 33s, right? 33s not easy, but you could do 33s. So potentially, you're looking at like with the AMD CPU, you could be doing like 6000 C28. Let's say you're a cracked RAM OCR. So you're doing 6000, 28, 32, 2080 TRAS. So now you're at like 60 TRC, 60 is this a serious TRC, 60 TRC, 28 TRAS, 32, and like CAS 28. Like you can even do CAS 26. Let's say your RAM is like 1.6 volts, CAS 26, right? Alright, okay. Will that config stand against 7000 plus? No, it won't. No, let's not be stupid, right? Like timings don't matter that much. And 7000 would absolutely body 6000. So 7000, 7200, 7400 with the Hynix A die. No, there's no contest. Like there's no contest. Like I don't have to elaborate. Like if you don't agree with me, then you're being silly. Like 7000 is uncomparably faster. It's so much faster. And you've seen in like Gamers Nexus and Hardware Unboxed, they've done RAM latency tests with DDR5. And if you've noticed the XMPs, what do you see? You see usually XMPs are somewhere around the 65 nanosecond mark. Why is that? Partially timings, secondary timings, tertiary timings. But 65 nanoseconds on most XMPs, even 6400 XMPs, that is extremely slow. As you saw in the video I posted about my daily, 49 nanoseconds is what I can see with 7000 and my ring at like 4.9, right? So the problem is now that where a benchmark will show like 25% victory for Zen, right? Bring that down to more like 8%, right? And that's versus the 1200K, non-KS, right? And the older chip, the 12th one, like the 1200K, not the 13th iteration of the i9, i.e. the fucking behemoth known as 1300K. That CPU, my goodness, dude. L2 caches up. They've increased IPC on Alder Lake. They've increased IPC. So, they have essentially, like, taken already a cracked architecture and somehow improved it. I don't know how they improved it, like, clock for clock. It's insane. And you're talking about 5.5 all-core at stock? Dude, at stock, 5.5 all-core, right? So you can expect 5.0 ring. Potentially 5.1 ring if their ring silicon is also slightly improved now. And that's a stock. So you're talking about like if you were like a good OCR, maybe like 5.7 all core with like 5.0, 5. Maybe 2 ring even. So 5.2 ring potentially. And then you're talking about like Hynix A die and the faster IMC. So now you're talking about like 8000 megatransfers on DDR5 pretty easily. And then DDR4 up to like potentially 4400 B die. Dude, 4400 B die in Gear 1. If the IMC clocks like 2000 megahertz. Dude, that's insane. Like, please, no one tell me shit about how Zen is gonna apparently smash Raptor Lake and how Intel should be scared. Intel has got nothing to fear, okay? The only area where Zen will probably thrash them is workstation stuff. And you know what? AMD have always won workstation, right? Like, if you want a workstation, buy Threadripper, right? Buy Threadripper. Like, Threadripper 3000 series is cheap now, and it's fucking way faster than 1200K, obviously. And if you need like a gaming chip too, you know what, dude? Like the 5950X can game pretty well, and it probably beats the 1200K out in a lot of like workstation stuff. So I don't see like where that argument is coming from. Like it's like a nothing burger. It's like, oh, AMD wins in workstation stuff. Yeah, it does. Obviously, it does. It's always. But like in terms of gaming, no, gaming will always be won by Intel. Like the latency Intel have, like, their architecture is inherently low latency. Like, from the ground up, the way Intel have designed their gaming architectures, their engineers have, you could say, in quotation marks, a special sauce, right? Same thing as NVIDIA, right? There's a reason why NVIDIA's graphics cards and their drivers are always suited to certain games, why they're always so reliable, why certain types of workloads and why certain types of rendering are always good in NVIDIA, it's because NVIDIA engineers are, like, the way they built up the architecture, the way they designed it from the ground up, it's the special source NVIDIA have used allows them to do what they do, right? It's the same reason AMD is so good at workstation. It's because AMD's engineers know how to, like, design the architecture to be optimized for multi-threaded, like, workstation type operations. But Intel will always win gaming. Always, always, always. And the thing is, most of these guys that are, kind of like, oh, Zen is going to destroy Intel, most of these individuals are not workstation users. They are not, like, people that care about, like, 5 minutes of render time. Most, if not all these individuals, are gamers. And if you're a gamer, please do not get excited about Zen. You do not have anything to worry about. Like, and like, don't worry about Zen, because you know what? The motherboards are way too expensive. Like, the motherboards are ridiculously expensive. You're not going to get much performance out of Zen than your current setup. If you own a 1200K right now, even a 12600K, 12700K, get yourself a nice MSI Unify for like $400 on sale, maybe $300 when the new boards come out. Get you like a nice $200 Unify, get you some $200 Hynix DDR5, get that shit up to 7,000 and be happy, right? Be happy. You'll be fine. You won't get destroyed by Zen. You'll have no reason to buy the 16 core or some $600, $700 motherboard or anything. You'll be fine. You'll be completely fine. I promise you. And if you wanna cash into a new CPU now and you wanna the best gaming chip you can buy, the Raptor Lake chips are going to be better. Like, the Raptor Lake chips will absolutely destroy it in gaming. I'm not going to say that Zen will perform badly or that Zen will not beat Alder Lake or something stupid like that, because that I think is a bit far-fetched. But do I think that Intel's new stuff will defeat AMD's new stuff? Yes, I do. I personally do. I feel like there's not. I don't feel like there's any real reason to believe that not to be the case. You could even look at it simply. If Intel's winning right now, you can assume they'll win next summer, right? So, yeah, like, I just don't believe the hype, guys. Just, be measured and be realistic and think to yourself, like, is what I'm looking at really indicative of what is going to happen? Or, just use your critical thinking and look at what's in front of you. Do not buy into marketing, because it's oftentimes a lie. Oftentimes. And that goes for Intel too. Like, marketing is always a lie, right? And I find AMD's marketing particularly creative. Let's go with creative. I find it creative. I find it very, very colorful. They use very colorful terms and very creative marketing. Very interesting marketing ideas. I've always found their marketing particularly, embellished. So, yeah. I've got an issue with AMD. If they bring out a good product one day, I will happily applaud them. But until then, I refuse to buy into their BS because I can think for myself. And if somehow, miraculously, AMD's 3000 MHz IMC and it just somehow destroys Raptor Lake, you know what? I will admit I'm wrong. And AMD will be the king, and they'll make all their sales, and everyone will be happy, and all that good stuff. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I have to prepare for load shedding, so I will check you in the next one.